Hey everybody, thanks so much for checking out Better Student Ministry. My name's Mark Freeman and this is Jared Barry, and together we have over 30 years of youth ministry experience.
We hope this resource was a blessing to you and your team. Along with every training video, we've included a downloadable PDF filled with discussion questions for you to wrestle through and contextualize the topic we've discussed. If you guys are interested in doing a deeper dive, we also have a podcast that's available where Mark and I talk a lot more about the topics we've talked about today. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook by simply searching Better Student Ministry. Hey everybody, welcome to Better Student Ministry. We're so glad to be with you, and today we want to talk to you about empowering student leaders. Student leaders are what we do ministry for. Raising students, discipling students, and releasing them for the mission of God is what youth ministry is about. And so today's topic is really important. But before we dive into what you should do and what kind of leaders we should look for, we want to give you some warnings about what leaders sometimes we tend to look for, but maybe we shouldn't. So, Mark, get us started.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important for us to keep in mind is we're drawn sometimes to certain personalities that we think are leadership type personalities. But if we just hone in on certain personalities, we're going to miss a lot of types of leaders, a lot of really good types of leaders. I think sometimes we're either drawn to personalities that are similar to us because we think we're great leaders, or we're drawn to that outgoing, upfront, boisterous, loud personality because typically they are leaders. Whether they recognize it or not, but they're not always necessarily your best leaders for your group or in certain situations. And sometimes they're just loud and obnoxious and they're looking for attention. They're not necessarily wanting to lead something. So when you're thinking about the leaders the students in your group and who could be potential leaders, we're going to give you some tips here in a second, but our first caveat is try to avoid looking for certain personalities.
Yeah, popularity doesn't always translate to leadership. The other thing I want to warn you about is don't just look for leaders based on competency or skill set. I know for me, a lot of times in youth ministry, I was tempted to go for the kids that were great musicians or they had a high skill set in certain areas that I thought could benefit the ministry. But that's a real danger because skills or competency doesn't translate to leadership, and we know that's true.
Yeah, and skills can always be added to someone who has leadership traits who need them to be sharpened. I'm thankful all the time that my skills can be sharpened and improved on.
Absolutely. So don't just focus on skill set, don't just focus on personality. But here's what we want to encourage you on. Focus when you're looking to raise up and empower student leaders on these three things. Are they faithful? Are they available? And are they teachable? So the first one we want to look at is faithful. The idea that are our students faithful, number one, in their attendance and participation in what we're doing. Sometimes, like we said, we look for the leaders who are super engaging or have great personalities or whatever, but they're not really faithful. They're not there. They're not present. And we can overlook kind of the kids that are maybe in the background, maybe don't shine bright, but we're missing the fact that these are the kids that are there. They want to be there. They're engaged. They're a part of it. And so one of the first things that we should look at when we're trying to figure out what students do we want to really empower and release for leadership is the idea that are they faithfully engaged?
Yeah, because if they're not there, they're not very helpful to you, right? And sometimes a lot of really strong leaders, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be, are involved in so many different things. And so when they're around, you take advantage of their gifts as you can, but as you're looking at your group and you're trying to develop, okay, who are going to be the people who are going to help us push this ministry forward? The ones that are there are the ones that are most helpful to you. Another way that you can think of faithful as well is, are they spiritually faithful? Do they have an appetite for anything of God? And that doesn't mean are they the most spiritually mature in your group. It's do they have an appetite to be a follower of Christ? Do they want more from God? Or do they have any intention to better themselves as a follower of Christ? Is there any appetite for devotional talk? Or do they share when you're in a small group situation or small group setting? Like you can have really great leaders, but if they don't have, when we're specifically thinking of the context of our youth ministries, if they don't have any spiritual appetite, then I don't really want them up front leading my group. I want to be in the back, behind the scenes with them, working and encouraging those things, speaking about the potential I see in them. Do you understand the influence that God could use you and just the charismatic nature of your personality or the faithfulness? But if you're not going after God, we are limited in how we can use you and how you can influence your peers.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So the first one is faithful.
Yeah.
And we want you to consider that when you're looking at your students. The second idea or concept is the idea of students being available. Yeah. Now, this is a really important one because when it comes to empowering leadership, the whole idea is that we're helping students feel sent and feel a part of the mission of God. And that mission may be for them to make disciples in their schools. It may be leadership within the youth ministry and participation in whatever systems or plans you have. But it's always about engaging and stepping out in the mission. The problem is some of our students, they love being there, they're around, but when it comes to moving from just being an attender to being someone who is serving and engaging the mission, they're no longer available. Right. So it may be a students that have crazy schedules, maybe they're involved in every sport possible, or maybe it's just not a priority for them. And the temptation is to go, well, they're such a great student, they're such a great influencer, I want to use them, I want to lift them up. But if they're not available to be a part of the mission, you're going to end up shortchanging the type of leadership that you have. So I want to encourage you that when you're thinking about student leaders, not only are they faithful to be a part of what you're doing, but are they available to engage in the mission and the aspects of leadership that you're trying to raise them up into.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with where the positioning of their heart is, right? Where the targeting of their heart is. And I'm not saying kids that are involved in band and music and sports and those sorts of things, I'm not saying their heart isn't positioned towards God, but when they are present, are they actually present? Are they able to engage? Are they able to snap into place and be a part of what's going on in the youth group? Do they see the peers in their youth group as people to share life with, as people to sharpen each other and challenge one another and hold each other accountable? And I think a lot of availability also has to do with when you're physically present in the room, are you engaging with what's going on? Another way to think of available too is, are they making themselves available to serving opportunities, which are I think the prerequisite to leadership opportunity. Yeah. So, for example, and I'd love to hear an example from your own ministry too. But I'll get it started. For example, at the end of our Wednesday night, our youth group met in our sanctuary. So we reconstructed all of the seating in our sanctuary for our Wednesday night, which means when the night was done, we had to get ready again for our weekend services. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And so at the end of every night, I just kind of would toss it out there. Hey, if you don't have to leave right away, if you're available, can you help us move chairs and tables and set things back up? And those kids who they prioritized serving and loving and caring for the community. They knew I'll be able to catch up with so-and-so later, so I'm going to help Pastor Mark out, or I'm going to be willing to make a sacrifice here of my time and my energy and serve. And so kind of floating out those little opportunities. Or if we were at a retreat and we were getting ready we just finished a game session and we're now getting ready to transition to the next thing. Sometimes even without saying it, students will start gathering up supplies. They see the staff doing it and they realize, hey, this is a way that I can be available to show I care about more than just myself. What were some things within your youth ministry or opportunities that you were able to use to identify, are these students available for next level leadership?
Yeah, we had an thing that we used to do where we would have a time before our youth ministry, like an hour or so before, we would invite students to come and be a part of different things. And there was a group of students who I knew at that time were used to just kind of hanging out. You know, they'd go to a restaurant, whatever. And so we would say, hey, why don't you come and we're going to either spend some time talking about the service, or we're going to spend even some time in prayer. And so we'd offer these opportunities that probably in their minds weren't as fun, or they'd rather hang out and do other things. But you started to see which students really had a heart for the youth ministry, which students wanted to be available to be a part of the bigger picture, not just coming to consume and hang out. And so that was one of the ways that we would see, similar to picking up chairs or whatever, it was inviting them to be a part of this kind of pre-service time.
Sure.
Where they honestly had to sacrifice something to do it. Yeah. And I think that's one of the keys.
Sure.
With availability. Are they willing to sacrifice and prioritize? And that also may include availability to spend time with you as an adult leader.
Yeah.
Like, do they want to have that type of relationship? Are they willing to sacrifice other things to do that thing? I think that's a good indicator.
Even when you look at your calendar, there are certain events that are more fun than others, right? And so are they making themselves available to some of those next level sort of events as well? Like everybody wants to come to convention, and I got no problem with that, and everybody wants to go on the retreats and stuff like that. But we used to do a fundraiser for Speed the Light where we would do a fasting for 24 hours, and then we would do like some service projects and stuff. And not surprisingly, it was always one of our least attended events, even amongst our staff for that matter. But those students that showed up were usually kids that were really ready to engage in something, and they weren't always the loudest, most boisterous, most outgoing personalities. Sometimes it was those faithful kids that make themselves available for some next level stuff, and it was pretty cool to see how that panned itself out as well.
So we've got faithful, we've got available, and lastly, we've got teachable. This is probably the most self-explanatory one, but it's basically the idea that the heart of your leaders should be humility and teachability. And that's true for us as adult leaders. This course is true for student leaders. And so when we're looking at who we want to put in positions of leadership, we should always look to the students who are humble, who are teachable, who genuinely have a desire to learn and grow. Students who are not filled with pride, think they have it all together. That's who we should be looking to model of what leadership looks like. And I would just say this caveat before we get your take on this is we have to first model this in our own leadership if we expect it from them. But when we're looking at student leaders, look for the ones who have a teachable heart and spirit, because they ultimately will go further than those who don't.
I think one of the biggest key indicators of a teachable heart is a humble heart, right? Willing to take criticism, willing to take correction, willing to receive input and feedback from other adult leaders. And so one of the key things I look for in a teachable heart is a humble heart. And honestly, it's probably because I know pride is one of the issues that I struggle with the most, and it's probably one of the biggest limiting factors in my own leadership. And so I think it's like the starting line for quality leadership is, if you're teachable, then you recognize I don't know everything. I've got things to learn, and I want to learn more of those things.
So I want to encourage you guys, think about those three: faithful, available, teachable. When we're selecting students and thinking about the students that we really want to invest in for next level leadership, don't chase the personalities, don't chase the skills or competencies, chase those who are faithful, available, and teachable. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys on the next one. Question number 1. Take some time and assess the current level of student leadership in your youth ministry. How do you feel about it? Are you encouraged? Are you discouraged? Take some time and discuss that with your team. Question number 2. Do you currently have a process of developing student leaders? If you do, how can you improve the process? If you don't, how can you get started at creating a process which will help develop student leaders in your group? Question number 3. Take a look at your student leaders and ask yourself this question: how would I rank them 1 out of 10 in the areas of faithful, available, teachable? Secondly, are there some students that are not involved in student ministry that need to be based on those 3 requirements? Thanks for checking out Better Student Ministry. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to share it with a friend. You can always find our videos by searching Better Student Ministry on either Facebook or YouTube. And if you want to dive deeper into the content we discussed today, we've got a podcast available for you on both SoundCloud and iTunes, or on our YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, share it with people who are around you. We hope it's been a blessing to you. If you've got questions or content you'd love us to discuss, feel free to email us at betterstudentministry@gmail.com.